Sisterhood of the Rings, Part 1. Dun, doo, doo, doo. Burning Sissy. The first festival I went to this summer took place in the Black Rock Desert in Nevada. And I know what you're thinking, but it was not Burning Man. It was called the Sizzling Sisters Festival. Some of the burning, none of the man. Now, Sizzling Sisters is actually based on Burning Man, and the main concept that they share in common is something called radical self-reliance. Now, what that means is that you're expected to come to the festival prepared to take care of yourself for the time that you're in the desert. So you bring your own water, your own tent, your own food, etc., sunscreen. But me, I had never been to Burning Man, so I didn't know nothing about no radical self-reliance. And in fact, if I had known about it, I would never have gone. One look at my refrigerator, everyone would have known that I am radically unreliable when it comes to food, okay? So I roll up to the festival, step out of the air-conditioned shuttle bus, and into the 100-degree plus heat in the desert, and I'm a little underprepared. I'm traveling light. All I have is my guitar, a backpack with some clothes, a bottle of Smart Water, and a 6-pack of Coke, dumb water. And, you know, I know that I'm a little naive, and I did know, but I'm not like totally stupid. I knew that I would need more things than that in order to spend 3 days in the desert. But how was I supposed to know that our community would be boycotting Target stores right at the time I'm about to go on my vacation? I had a gift card and everything, so I was like out of luck. So I'm running a little late, so I decide, well, they'll probably have something there, you know, something where I can get some of the basics. Wrong, they did not. I don't know if you've ever been to Black Rock Desert in the midsummer, but let me tell you, it's really, really hot. In fact, it's so hot, it's about as hot as you can get without actually being on fire. And so, like, by the time I got the treatise on radical self-reliance, I had already missed the last shuttle bus back to the Reno airport. So my unreliable self was radically SOL for the day, okay? So I'm wandering around. I'll tell you, the closest I've ever been to the desert was like the beach. You know, they both have sand, but let me tell you, the beach and the desert is very different, as I found out. And speaking of difference, Sizzling Sisters Festival is very different from the Michigan Women's Music Festival. And mainly, for example, like at Mishfest, I might walk around and say, oh my goddess, if they run out of nut loaf before I get to the front of the food line, I'm just gonna die. And at Sizzfest, I was walking around saying, oh my goddess, if I don't get out of this hot, burning sun, I'm just gonna die. Like for real. There's something about the prospect of death that really takes the festivity out of a festival, you know what I'm saying? So anyway, luckily for me, another big concept at the Sizzling Sisters Festival is help a sister out. So I'm like stumbling around, drying out like a raisin in the sun, and this very nice woman invites me to come and spend some time with her in her solar geodesic tent. Geodesic dome tent, okay? Now this was a really nice tent covered with solar panels, you know, and she could generate enough electricity to power a small fan. And she had enough juice left over for a few electronic appliances, and if you get my drift, you can imagine where these might be applied. So, you know, we're getting along, we're up in the geodesic tent, and I'm getting my chat on, you know, and I make the mistake of mentioning to her that, you know, I'm almost out of water. And she just shut down, froze up on me. She said, what You come camping in the Mojave Desert and you don't bring water. I could see my IQ points just flying out of the little geodesic flap in the front of her tent, you know. I tried to explain to her about, you know, Target and the boycott and the 7-Eleven, and she's like, no, she's not having it, okay? So that was the end of it. Eventually, it started getting pretty chilly up in that tent, and I'm not talking about the temperature. So we both decided it was time for me to get my mosey on. So she gave me one of those little pat, pat, pat hugs, you know. And then she slams the tent door behind me. Well, it wasn't a slam, actually. It's more like zip, 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 zip. Whatever. So I'm wandering around the festival looking for a place where I can play some music, because that's what I came for. Music festival, hello. But they don't really have stages at the Sizzling Sisters Festival. They just have these big fire pits. And everyone just takes turns, you know, you sit at the fire and everyone takes turns singing and playing. So I found a big fire pit and I wedged myself in between a couple of drummers. And so I'm going and then it's my turn to go around and I'm playing my little song and people are all nice and polite and listening. And then the drummer would play and then everybody would pull out these drums out of nowhere. Just everybody's drumming, oh, la, la, la. And so it would come back around to me as me and my guitar, and then everybody in their drums, okay? So after a while, they started skipping me and turned into some sort of karmic drumming circle, and I just gave up and wandered off. I found the place off to the side and got in my sleeping bag and called it a night, right? So in the morning when I wake up, I don't know why, but I was like in this panic. And I couldn't figure it out. I just felt like there was some sort of wild animal nearby. I knew because I could smell it. It was like this musky, raccoonish, sort of ferrety kind of smell. And I'm looking all around, and I noticed that it's coming from my sleeping bag. And in fact, the smell is coming from me. I was not a happy camper. I said, I have got to do something about this stat. I don't know how many of you have ever tried to freshen up with a bandana and a warm can of Coke. But it can lead to some uncomfortable situations. Like I'm walking around and all my bits and pieces are sticking together, you know. And I'm like all sticky and I get covered with this light coating of dust. And it looks like I got some sort of weird reverse tan, sort of like Michael Jackson or something. So anyway, now I'm on a mission. I am either going to find some water, I'm going to get back on that bus and find a place that's cooler and a lot wetter. So I'm walking around and I see this woman sitting on the ground outside of her tent, and she's wearing some sunglasses, some Tevas, and nothing else. So I walk over to her. I'm going to take my stand. I don't have to stay in one place. So I walk over to her and I say, hey, the name's Sissy. Sissy Van Dyke. She looks up at me and she says, you're standing on my labia. Okay, this woman looks like she's had a lot of sun, so she was a little baggy, but I'm like a good 3 feet away from her, okay? So I don't get it. And then she points at my feet and I look down and she has constructed this huge clay vagina in the sand, and I'm standing, well, I take a little step to the left and apologize. And she looks up at me like, now what? And I say, excuse me, sister, I was just wondering if you might have some extra water I could buy off of you. She cringes, you know, like I had just offered to construct some sort of clay penis companion piece to her artwork. And she doesn't say anything, she just points down the row, and I can see this woman sitting in front of this other tent. She's sitting cross-legged, and I guess that's where somebody who has some water. So I thank Labia Lady, and I go over to what I hope is going to be Water Woman. So I go over there, and I say, hey, the name's Sissy, Sissy Van Dyke. And she's like, hello, Sissy, I am Wanda. I heard you at the fire pit last night. You are a very good musician. And I'm like, hey, thanks a lot. She says, what can I do for you, my sister? I said, well, you know, I was wondering if maybe you might have some water you could sell me. And she's like, do not talk to me here of commerce. This is a place of barter and trade. Tell me, are your songs original? And I'm like, sure, most of them are. And she goes, you know, Sissy, I really like that song you sang about dancing on the air. And I said, oh, you know, you mean dancing with my cloud shoes on? That was just a little something I came up with a few years back. And she says, yes, I really like that song. I said, well, would you like me to play it for you? She says, no, I really like that song, Sissy. And I'm looking at her like, blink, blink. And she says, think, barter, and trade. And I finally get it. I'm like a little creeped out, but I said, oh, well, I could make you a gift of that song in exchange for some water. She says, oh, would you? That would be so wonderful. Huh. She reaches back into her tent and pulls out this digital recorder, and she has me sing the song into the recorder. Okay, so I do that, and then, to show how serious this babe is, she actually hands me a release, and I'm looking at it, and I'm assigning all the rights to this song to Wanda A. Goodrich and the Frogurt Yogurt Corporation. Well, what could I do? I was caught between a rock and a thirsty place, so I signed the song away. The woman opens the tent, she says, here, help yourself. I go in, it's like an oasis up in there. There's wall-to-wall gallons of water, and she says, take all you need, and if you run out, come back and get more. Oh, and help yourself to some Frogurt breakfast bars. So I go up in there. It's only 2 days left of festival, so I grab 4 gallons of water. I have no intention of coming back, and I grab a handful of those breakfast bars. But you know what? I threw most of them away because I ate one, and it made me thirsty. So I knew it was a trap. So anyway, I go back, and I'm talking to some of my friends, my new friends at the fire pit, and I mention my excursion on the shark side with Wanda. And they say, oh my God, we should have warned you. Turns out everyone at SizFest knows that Wanda is like this evil corporate lawyer from the Frogurt Yogurt Corporation. More than one person has bartered with Wanda, only to have their work show up in some advertisement for Frogurt. Anyway, live and learn. From now on, I'm gonna take that radical self-reliance concept to heart. But in the meantime, I'm still a little worried because I'm always thinking I'm going to turn on the radio and hear my song as a jingle for Frogurt breakfast bars, sung very badly by William Shatner.